All right, welcome back to the shop. So it's been a while since I've done a video on a growler that's come through the shop. We just had a large project where we had 9 of these come through, and I didn't do videos on those for a particular reason. But we just got this one done, and it's getting ready to ship out. It's going to Michigan. The owner's not in a super big hurry to get it back right now because it's, I guess it's really cold over there. But anyways, we got this thing done. I've got my list here. Kind of go through what we did to it. She's a nice truck. It's ITV-160. Let's see, it was made October 2010. So let's go ahead and open up the hood and we'll see what we got. So under the engine compartment here, let me show you what we've done. We changed the hood strut and I actually put a stronger hood strut. I was in the past changing it with the same PSI hood strut that they were putting on these, but I'm actually, it's the first one I've done this where I've put a stronger hood strut on there. You can see once you get to a certain point, it'll close by itself. Once you get about here, it'll just hold itself, and then it'll just kind of take off if you let go of it and hold itself open. So this is the first one getting one of those. And then coming over here to the windshields, these were all rusted up, the hinges were, which we see that quite often. So we lubed those up. We got them freed up, lubed them up, replaced these missing roll bar pins, put a new fuel filter, put a new hydraulic filter, fixed the wastegate valve. The wastegate valve was stuck on this one, so we got that freed up. As far as the engine oil change goes, we didn't have to do that on this one. The owner had just done it, and it's got this motorcraft filter. It's an FL784, and it's a different shape filter, and I'm really interested in this. I want to get one and kind of cut it open and see how it's built inside and see how it compares to the filters that belong on these. And if it's set up the same way with as far as like a check valve or drain back valve or anything like that, I think this might be a really good option. It's probably going to be a lot cheaper because we're paying 40 to 50 bucks for the MWM or a man filter for these. So that's something I'm going to be looking up in the future here to see if that's going to be an option for us. All right, then coming down here to the front suspension, we put new rubber flaps here, the kind of mud flaps to keep the debris and mud and stuff from getting on the side of the engine. We did all 4 front ball joints, both front airbags. Okay, and then we also purged the nitrogen on the air struts. We let the nitrogen or air, whatever's in them, out, and then we fill them up about 3 times, and we fill them up, purge it out, fill it up, purge it out, and then we set them to about 90 pounds, anywhere from 90 pounds to 100 pounds, just depends on how we feel that day. And that way we know that there's no moisture in there, there's no just like air compressor or pump air in there, which if you do that, if you fill this with pump air, you're going to get moisture in there, and that's going to start rusting, and you're going to ruin your struts over time. We also changed the gear oil in the front differential. Coming over here, we put a new safety switch over the switch for the air compressor. And then coming over here to the dash, to the voltmeter was working off and on. It was intermittently working. So we took the dash apart, and Alex found the connector plug on the back of that was no good. So we put a new connector plug on the back of that. That fixed that problem. We ended up changing a lot of these screws, and instead of the stainless screws now, I'm putting a galvanized screw in there, and that way it won't gald as bad, because stainless screws tend to gald really bad, especially when the rib nuts back here are stainless as well. They'll kind of just weld themselves together, and then it's a pain in the butt to get them out. So we ended up putting about 15 new screws in the dash. Coming down here, we put a key switch on it so he can lock out the ignition. We made a center console plate. We took that radio mount or the comm mount bracket off and made this flat plate for it. Coming down here to the seat cushions, a lot of the seat cushions were just hanging here. They were just sitting here. Unfortunately, they didn't blow out on its way here in transport, so Alex went through and we tightened up all the straps on them, set all this, connected all the straps on them and cinched them up. We also put a cable pull air tank drain on the front tank, and I believe it was this bar here. This bar here was bent really bad, so I had one laying back here in the container, so we changed that bar for him. This left wheel kept losing air, and we knew the regulator was good. We had a new regulator. This hose was bad, so we changed actually 2 of these hoses on the truck. I think the right front hose and then this hose, and then the wheel seal back in here behind the hub was bad, the one on the knuckle, so we changed that seal as well. We went around and kind of touched up the paint. We don't do like a full paint job or anything, but this thing, like, it had the stickers all on the side here still. So to say it had been recarved, it's painted on here somewhere. It's got the date when it was repainted. And then before we went to auction, they put these ugly stickers on here, so it doesn't have the number here. It should have 120 right, or what number? It should have 160 right here. It doesn't have that, but it had this white sticker over there. We got that sticker off. We repainted the marks here for the suspension, you know, so that we can for setting the suspension height. And then we also went through and reset the presets there on the suspension height. Coming down here, looking down here, both drive shafts were bent. The front one, I think it was the front one, had just a gobs of undercoating or thick paint on it, and so we had that retubed. We had the rear one retubed as well because it was bent. We changed the transfer case fluid. We drained that out, flush a little bit, and then top it off again. The skid plates, we straightened the skid plates out. They were bent pretty good, so that's all taken care of now. And then back here in the rear passenger compartment here, we drilled extra drain holes in here. This one actually had them in this corner. Sometimes we don't see them in this corner at all, and we always add them. We make sure there's one in each corner. They do have a drain hole under the tank, but it's always plugged up. Like, it doesn't drain very well because the tank's just kind of in the way. There's the foam that the tank's mounted to, and we see them get just plugged up with dirt, with whatever, you know, debris over time. And then these rust up, and then these fill up with water, and then they rust up, and then it just rots out your floor. So that's something you really got to pay attention to on these, is make sure that these footwells are draining properly. And so that's why we add these drain holes to them. All right, and then coming back here to the rear suspension, we changed the rear airbags. We changed all 4 ball joints in the rear. The owner had cut the locks loose, but they weren't cut very clean. They're pretty bad looking. So we cleaned those up a little bit with the grinder and then painted them. That would, you know, keep them from rusting and make it look a lot better. Back here on the right side of the rear steer unit, there's 2 rams up here. They're 2 gas rams, and those actuate the locks here for the steering. So when you're not using the steering locks, it locks it so that it can't shift back and forth. And those are always bad. Whenever we see these, those are bad. So we changed both of those. We found a used NATO slave cover here. It doesn't have the cable thing on here, but at least it has one on it now. And then actually here on the rear deck, see, we have some new bolts in here. These usually have a longer bolt that goes through, a 1/4 inch bolt, and I think they're 1/4 inch. It might be a 5/16. And then you have a nut and a washer on the bottom, and they're kind of a pain to get back in here, especially with the batteries. You're back here with a wrench, and you take a chance of shorting it out on the cables. So we went ahead and put rib nuts back here for those. So those 4 bolts, it's real easy access now to get that rear cover off. You don't even need a wrench. All you need is just a 1/4 inch drive impact and a socket, and you can pull those off. We do have the rear cover here. I just took it off just for the video. Most of these Growlers, that rear cover is gone, but this one has it still, which is good. See, we put the battery clamp back on. It wasn't on. We put a battery disconnect switch back here, so that we keep the batteries from draining down. These aren't really bad as far as the batteries draining down, except for this. If it wasn't for this 12 volt, 24 volt, 12 volt unit here, these things would be able to sit without them. But this here is always drawing a little bit of current. So if you don't put a battery disconnect, you're going to need to come out and start this thing at least once a week to keep the batteries from going dead. Back here, we had a lot of air leaks. I went and started this thing up on a nice cold morning. It was about 35, 40 degrees, something like that, and built air, and we could hear air leaks all throughout here. And every one of these swivel, 90-degree swivel push to connect fittings were leaking because they have an O-ring inside there where they swivel. And since it was really cold out, those O-rings had really shrunk up, and these were all leaking. So we changed a whole handful of those. Let's see, I wrote it down how many we changed. Yeah, so we changed 6 of these 90-degree fittings here, and changed a bunch of the hose too, because the hose gets jacked up on the ends where it's being locked in there. It'll put like a ring around there, and even though you change the fitting, sometimes it'll still leak because of the hose. So we ended up just changing all these short pieces of hose. On the check valves for the suspension, we've been having a real problem with these check valves. I bought like 6 or 7 different brands, different kinds from different suppliers, and they just randomly leak. You put them on, it'll be good. 2 weeks later, one of them leaks. You change it and it's good, and then it's strange. Like, they're not 100% guaranteed. And we kept having a problem with this when we went through them twice and changed them. So finally we just changed and put 2 of them. So here's, you know, the 1/4 inch threaded NPT male and female check valve, and then this is a 1/4 inch NPT male check valve that has a built-in push to connect fitting on it, which are actually really nice because you don't need an adapter. But we just put 2 of them on, so this is double check valves now. Hopefully that'll cure the problem. At least we'll have double the chance of it working, I guess. Okay, and then yeah, we put a new air filter on the air compressor because that was rotted out. And then back over here at the air dryer, the condensation separator, it was leaking out the bottom. So we ended up changing that out, got rid of that air leak. So this thing's doing really good. It's got one small spot where it was leaking a little bit that we really couldn't fix the problem. And I'll show you where that was. I mean, we could do it, but it's gonna be a lot of work. Right back here, it's got this connector here to be able to plug a hose into, and that fitting was just leaking just a little bit. You can see how it's rusted up inside. And to fix that, we couldn't get it off. So to fix it, we're gonna have to pull this whole rear seat assembly out, and just to get that off and fix it. So that's something we haven't done yet. And hopefully we'll get time to do it before the transport guy shows up. All right, then coming back here to the right rear, we changed the air tank drain to a cable pull. We added that on this one. You know, these ones have that butterfly twist thing, and they're always almost impossible to get loose. You need a I've had some where we've put pliers on them and just destroyed them trying to just open them up to drain them. So we put this on so it's real quick and easy for the owner to, you know, to drain the moisture out of the tanks. This was broken, this bracket here. We replaced that. All right, and the owner sent us a bunch of these turn buttons. He wanted these changed, all the ones that were bent up or broken or whatever. So we drilled the rivets out, put new pop rivets in those. And then one more thing on this thing, when this got here, it had a problem with the transmission. The owner said that it wasn't shifting, it was in fail-safe mode. So, like, we're hoping that the transmission's not bad, you know, or that sensor inside the transmission shorting out or something like that. So did a bunch of troubleshooting and finally figured it out. Right here in the fuse panel, this fuse right here, number 15, for the transmission, one of the contactors inside that the blade slides into was pushed in. It came loose from the panel itself and it was pushed in. So, you know, the fuse would go in. If you looked in there, you kind of couldn't really see anything. But I went in there and I was trying to test it, and I was testing things to shoot power back to see if the trans would work or whatever. And that's what it turned out being. So we had to pull the dash off again and pop that back in there, and that fixed the problem. So it never ceases to amaze me. Every one of these that comes in, we learn something different on these things. There's always something that we haven't seen before. So these things are amazing. Anyways, that's it on this one. She's a real nice truck. She's in really good shape. We've got everything fixed, everything working. It's going to be a really good truck for the owner. So anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video with a friend if you have anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff. You know, I got my videos on heavy equipment, videos on the growlers, on, you know, I've got 2 Mighty Mites sitting over here. Actually, I've got another Mighty Mite in the shop. I've got my M1161 Jeep. We got a lot of different stuff that we do here. We do component rebuilds for, you know, for my heavy equipment. We do videos on those. And so if you have anybody that's interested in that, please share my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks for watching. Whenever I'm trying to film, there's always got to be someone coming along making noise. These 2 Cobras just flew by.